Hello, good afternoon. I'm Danilene Bulosan. I'm lead software engineer of Workbean, and I would like to talk about what's new in Flutter. But before that, let's go to vibe check. Could you comment if you are um, Flutter developer, non-Flutter developer, or just non-dev? That would be great. I'm going to wait for comment if there is. Okay. Um, for but before I proceed, let's just talk about what is Flutter. Um, Flutter it was released on in May 2017 as as mobile UI framework. Now it state as UI toolkit for building native complied application for mobile, web, and desktop from a single base code. Because of it, it is easier to maintain because the artifacts are centralized. So let's talk about the advantages. Mm, We have three main advantages advantages of Flutter: fast, cheaper, and the community. Uh, it state that it is fast in terms of performance because Flutter performs 60 frames per second on most devices and 120 frames per second on devices supporting Flutter. We know that to see is to believe. So, in Verita, a custom software development company creates a deep performance comparison with native, React Native, and Flutter, and it shows native is best in terms of both performance and usage. Native is CPU heavy operation, while Flutter is great for fit for such as task and both CPU and memory standpoint. It is fast in terms of testing because Flutter adapts any platform. QA team does not need to check two apps, or dev don't need to write to test twice. It is faster in terms of development because Flutter is one code base in any platform. It is fast in terms of business because it easy to go online and expand their influence on electronic platforms. So we all know MVP application create 2 to 3 months. So Flutter is cheaper in terms of development because you could already create MVP in 2 to 3 months throughout the platform. So it's it's cheaper in terms of business because you could look and hire one dev in multiple platforms rather than look and hire specialized developers separately. Also, because your application artifacts are centralized, it creates more deployment and less development. So, one of the advantages is the community. Community of Flutters is rapid growing. They and the Google provide excellent support for developer and user. While you check when you check inside on Stack Overflow, you could see Flutter are rapidly increasing. More plugins and packages are built in PubDev for ease in development. So we know no one is perfect, and Flutter is also have disadvantages. And these two main major disadvantages: the development process and the developer. In terms of development process, uh, although Flutter is one of the best toolkits to create great app, the language is written in Dart, and Dart is not great. It it doesn't change in client, but some dev complaints code generation is quite troublesome. No JSON support, which means you need to serialize it before using it, and no test submodules. And that the quality of media plugins, for example, video player, is far from perfect. But dev know how to deal it with those issues. It's more like knowing your enemy first to deal with it. So it is disadvantages in developer because Flutter is a baby versus the other programming languages and framework. It has poor developer, a small pool of developer. So when you can't find professional dev and you want to create application using Flutter, you need to upskill your current developer. Flutter is easy to learn, but need 1 to 2 months to adapt truly. So time consuming and expensive. So last will be few third parties library. Don't get me wrong, okay? Flutter have a great libraries and they are increasing. But when you compare it to other programming languages and framework, it's still lower. So let's talk about the main topic. So what is new? So just this March 3, Flutter announced their version 2. So it major upgrades because enables developer to create portable application apps for any platform. You can use the same code base to ship native app from 5 operating system: iOS, Android, Windows, Mac OS, and Linux, as well as web experience targeting browser such as Chrome, Firefox, Safari, or Edge. It can be it can even embedded in cars, TVs, homes appliances. It broadened from mobile framework to portable framework, unleashing you up throughout wide varied different platform with little to no change. So in stable web version is moving from beta to stable. Um, it focuses 4 areas, which is the performance, web-specific features, which is the PWA, de- desktop form factors, which is customizing interactive scroll bar, shortcut scroll, and plugins. In terms of web performance, it has 2 types of rendering modes: the HTML renderer and the Canvas kit renderer. HTML renderer combines HTML, CSS, Canvas, and SVG elements. So has a smaller download size. Whereas Canvas Kit renderer consists with Flutter mobile and desktop. It has a faster performance with higher widget density, but it adds 2 MB in your download size. So you can see here, there is ano, to run a Flutter in web, you could just run Flutter run dash D Chrome if you want to run it in Chrome, or Edge if you want to run it in Edge, etc. So to build Flutter with web, you could just run Flutter build web or Flutter run dash dash release and select Chrome or Edge or any browser related application. So you could also select what kind of renderer you choose by using the dash dash web renderer. It has 3 options: the auto, HTML, and Canva kit. The auto, which is the default, it chooses which renderer you use. The option chooses HTML renderer when the application is running in mobile browser, and Canvas kit renderer when the app is running in desktop browser. While HTML always use HTML renderer, and Canva kits always use Canva kit renderer. So when launching a web server, you could just set server like Python HTTP dot server 8080 any port, or using DHTTPD package uh, to run your web application. Your web application is stored in build slash web directory. Next will be the desktop application. To make easier, to make it more easy, desktop application entered an stable early stage in Flutter 2. It has a beta snapshot. So beta snapshot is just um, you could run any desktop support without needing or switching to Flutter beta channel. But if you need a latest version of the desktop support, you need to switch in beta channel. Of course, it is not yet recommended to release a desktop application until the desktop support is stable. But first, if Flutter is not enabled at first in your application, so you need to enable the desktop application. So you could run Flutter config, enable Windows if you want to enable Windows desktop, Mac OS if Mac OS, and Linux if you want Linux desktop. When you're building a desktop application, you need to state if it is Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. So this is one of the major update because Dart 2.12 has a sound null safety concept. So Dart is 100% sure that all your files, elements cannot be null. But with sound null safety, you could just add question mark to say that this variable or this element could be null. But you need to set it to 2.12 version of Dart. So, monetizing application using ad has been one of the major popular requests of many Flutter developer. Flutter ad support available through Google Mobile Ad SDK for Flutter. It's still in beta mode, but it could use. It is work both ad mob and ad manager. So, and it supports a variety ad formats. So these are the samples of ads. The last will be the latest iOS widget. So they have new search tag field, if you can see here, and form search and form row text form field to produce validate form fields with iOS section visual aesthetic. So before we end, case if you don't need Flutter, according to UG's research, you need you don't need Flutter if you have a very small size application, because as I said previously, that Flutter is have a large size because it's around 1 to 3 MB. And you don't need Flutter if you need to use hot code pushes. It is a features allows you to update apps without going through app reviews. So you don't need to wait 2 to 3 days until update is reviewed by App Store. That's all with it. Thank you and hope you learned something.